Hi everyone, in my last video there was a strong interest in a starting build. Since most builds revolve around a specific Reaper and Reapers cannot be target farmed, this makes our options fairly limited. But there is one that we can buy, as you can see here, Adder Bow of the Slorm Temple. So we will build around this Reaper and make a starting build with it. The DPS that we will get is limited compared to other builds, but it's plenty enough to clear the entire game, the final boss, everything with it. And you can later go on for other builds when you find the Reapers that you want with that. The gear that you get while doing this is general enough that you can easily go for dozens upon dozens of other builds quite easily. You don't need to reroll much. And what I plan to do is to save this and use this for my mage and for my knight as a starting build for them until I find what I want to do with those. I haven't tested it because of this with mage and knight, but it should work with arcane clone and training lens just fine, I think. So for the Reaper, you will need 3000 pure Slorm, and that's about 20 temple runs in the beginning. That's not a long thing to do. It's quite fast to get it done. What I suggest is that you first increase your max save capacity about 5 or 10, so you will have more Elder Slorm that you can play with in the beginning. Everything else you don't need from here, so you shouldn't go put any points into the pure stat. You don't need extra Elder Slorm, fine, and these don't do anything, especially in the beginning. Maybe like in the thousands it will do something, but this is useless. If you just want the build, how it looks like and what it's made of, I will pin the build in the first comment. So for the showcase, I will show a Wrath and Battlefield, which is what you want to farm to get your gear for the other things, and for the Reapers that you want to farm, since Reapers come from breaches. As you can see, the gear is not maxed out. This is level 10, level 11 gear. You will be able to do max level Wrath 10 battlefields around gear 8, I think. Let's go and check it. As you can see, the DPS is there, the clear speed is there. It's quite comfortable, you don't have to do much, you just run around and kill everything with one hit. So for this level of content, this is way more DPS than you want. And this is enough DPS that you can kill the final boss with, but that won't be as high as in the battlefield. You can do about 10 million DPS on the boss, which makes it still around 1 minute fight, so that's really good for us, I think. Since it doesn't drop anything, you just need to kill it once and you can easily do it with this build. So as you can see, the build do just fine. It can do level 10 forge. I suggest instead doing level 8 and avoiding HP increases, because just because you can do it doesn't mean that you are efficient at doing it. So I would avoid it. And when you are leveling with this build, you can defeat Adam quite easily with this one. And if you want simply a broken build, then after you defeated the final boss, then you can just go with the Reaper that you get from there. You start farming with that Reaper with the exact same build that I have, and you will one-shot literally everything in the game. Okay, let's see the legendary options that we have. I say options because this is a starting build. I want to include a lot of variants that you can use when you get while leveling. So the two things that is required for you to have is the boot and the belt. The Arax Unbreakable Barrier and the Sorrowzil Pack. These are very strong legendaries. One of them, the boot, will give you that every damage that you receive will be a 10-second dot, and the other will make it that the maximum damage can be only 30% of your life. This means everything that is hitting you will be a 3% of your life damage dot per second instead. So because we barely have any life, this means with very small amount of regen and leech we can heal this up easy. The other thing that is recommend is a shoulder that will give you extra projectile. There is an alternative for this, the Drunken Master. It gives you less projectile, but since it will fire the projectile in our direction, the coverage actually will be probably the same, if not better. For helmet, you have three options that all give you invulnerability when you would be defeated. This is the strongest one of them, but there is one that gives you all resistance when you are under 30% HP on 1 minute cooldown, and there is one that heals you back up to 60 with a 10-minute cooldown. For Bracer, in the beginning, if you find it, I wouldn't roll for it. There is one that gives you like 23% raw damage, and in the beginning you will use raw damage as your main source. But I wouldn't get it specifically, only if you happen to find it, then you can use it. This will give you a lot of damage on the bosses because Echoes of Vigil will give you a nice multiplier for your criticals. For the gloves, the life leech is very comfortable here. It would mean that you don't need to roll life leech on your gloves or on your necklace. I still rolled it because of how I build this character, but it should be fine with just this life leech. For Huntress, there is another option. You can use the gloves that gives you 100% fork after rebound. That's a very strong gloves to have. But I want to make this a build that everything can use, so I will use it on my mage and my knight. For the back, this back, the Cape of Adriane, will give you the piece, fork and rebound that you want in the beginning to help it ease out your maxing these stats, because you want them 100%, and when you are at lower level, getting this to 100% is hard, and later you want to transition into Shroud of the Unseen for even more dodge. In the beginning, evasion matters actually because we're still at 80%. So this 29% increase is very useful from the back. But this is a luxury. If you don't get it, it's absolutely fine to not have it. The Blacklight Talisman, I suggest you get this. This will give you a shield that is about 5k and regen really fast. So this will be an extra defense that you can use, and it's especially useful for the final boss. I suggest only attempting the final boss when you have this. The rings are absolutely useless for this build. These don't do anything. These don't matter. You should just use epic rings, or if you find, you can use the life on hit or the mana on hit legendary rings that you can get. For runes, we will use a setup where we spend mana and activate the Retaliating Foresight with it. This will give us a buff that if we get hit with a debuff, it will negate it. Since the biggest issue we have is the shadow buff debuff that would stop our life and mana leech, this prevents it and makes this build comfortable to play. Otherwise we would need on the necklace to run cleanse. This gives an increase for it, and for Ultimatum we use the critical strike damage Ultimatum. This sets it to 280, and it's very useful because it will ease our stats in other places. We don't have to get it in other places. For battlefields this is extra useful because the specialty of this bow is when you get Elder Slorm, you will 3 times your Ultimatum, and that makes this 700% critical strike damage. This is very good. That's why you see such high numbers in battlefields. If you go to the Nether, it will be a way lower DPS, but it's still fine. The normal Nether, you can do it easy. The primordial Nether, I would suggest when you are at that point, you should start transitioning to the build that you actually want to play. So you can do it, but this isn't for that. Okay, let's go through the attributes. For the attributes, first go for Savagery 60. This will give you a lot of damage in the early game, especially because you will stack raw damage until you have this bow maxed out. And then go for Fury and Zeal and dump the rest of your point into Bravery. If you want, you can finish up Savagery and then Bravery, but you can choose to just dump everything into Bravery and leave it at 60. It's not a big difference. You can do it however you feel like. This would give you more movement speed. This is slightly more damage. That's the difference, but that's not a huge difference. For the Ancestral Legacy, when you start off, I suggest that while leveling, you should get the raw boost. This will give you a really big raw damage increase. And then go for the pierce and projectile speed here. These two are very strong in the beginning when you are leveling, and this gives you a very nice defensive layer with the attack speed decrease. And for the fourth one, you should get the attack speed and armor penetration from here. When you are around the fifth one, you can transition out from this, and you should get the Dark Ritual, and together we bind them. And for the fifth and sixth, you should sixth and seventh, you should get the Life on Hit and then Ancestral Backlash. This makes your single target significantly better, and you can have this by the time you are fighting Adam. So your Adam fight will be way quicker because of this. When you get your final rune, the one that you can place everywhere, it will depend whether you have the necklace or not. If you have the necklace, you should get Wavering Glow. This means that you will get a lot of shield on you, and the upkeep will be very consistent. You don't need to pick it up by yourself. If you don't have it, you can ease your gearing by getting the critical strike chance and ancestral strike chance from the lethal force here. This covers this part, and let's check the abilities. This build in the beginning is a Void Arrow build. The Void Arrow builds always look the same, so you should get the exact same setup as you see here, and you will use it until your gear is good enough to drop Void Arrow and will use only Arrow Shot instead. When you are using Void Arrow, you will be a Torment build. That means you are using Void Arrow, then Arrow Shot, then Void Arrow, then Arrow Shot, and your clear speed will be very good with it. When your gear is at that level, you should use arrow shot with the following setup. This setup is for the beginning. You can start using this when you have absolutely zero gear and it's very strong. And when you get your shoulders that will give you extra arrow, I suggest going for the damage increase here instead. And when you have about 50% rebound, fork, and piercing, maybe a bit more, but around that time, you can change this into a fork build and go for the fork here. This will give you a lot more coverage, but you need to have the base stats for it to actually make it work. Without it, it's not good. For the tumble, you can, for the boss fights, if you want, get more damage with this mastery, but I suggest even for the boss fights to leave the movement speed, because dodging is the best defense that you can have. Since you don't apply debuff that often, you apply it but it's not consistent enough, I suggest getting the increase from the radius instead. And in the beginning, when you have some mana and life problems, you can make them go away in your Torment build by using this mastery and make it free to cast. After you have life leech and mana leech, you can change this for 20% critical strike chance, and that's it. After you change to an arrow shot only build, this won't be useful anymore, so just leave it there. We won't use this one, and 10% critical strike chance, 40% projectile speed is all good. And in the beginning, when you don't have enough movement speed, I suggest that you get the movement speed from the Torment. Later, you can transition to getting the defensive arrow coverage with this one. You should never use Superior Endless Quiver. The mana cost is too high to justify keeping it up, because it will also drain your life and you don't get anything really useful out of it. It doesn't work with our shoulders. It's not good for us. You should use always the critical strike chances lucky instead. Okay, and let's check the gear and the stats for it. As you can see, the stats we in the beginning go for is raw damage, but you should only get it in your base and magic stats, because those are cheap to roll, and you will later transition out from raw damage. And you should go for pierce, fork, and rebound in the beginning and try to max it out as close to 100% as you can get. This build is absolutely fine if you don't have it at 100%. If it's like 70%, it will do just fine still. But 100% is what you want to get. It's your biggest damage increase. You should roll for life leech and mana leech. You can do it in the necklace and in the bracer and the glove if you want to. And you will need at least one place of mana leech and one place of life leech. I suggest that, especially when you level up, you get in some base stats where you get life regen and mana regen. These are very strong for leveling, and even later they will be strong for you because you have such a low life and mana pool that these flat increases are actually still useful for you. Attack speed is a very nice damage and life increase that you will feel a lot better when you have a lot of attack speed. As you can see, I got really lucky here. Because of the bow, we will get a huge chunk of additional damage. And the way we can scale this is that we scale critical strike, ancestral strike, attack speed, and projectile speed. So this is what we will focus on, because we don't need raw damage and we don't want raw damage increases. this is the multiplier that we will go for. So wherever you can, especially on your gloves, get the critical strike chances, ancestral strike chances, and in the shoulder, you can see, not in the shoulder, in the bracer, sorry, you can see the base stats, critical strike chance, ancestral strike chance. You should never get critical strike damage because that's covered by your ultimatum and you cannot increase it further. And you should get ancestral strike damage instead. As you can see, ancestral strike damage increase will make it that your ancestral strike will do a very big chunk of hit at once. The defensive layer will be evasion. In the beginning, when you don't have this setup, I suggest that you get 1 or 2 life increases with it. But in the beginning, mobs don't hit you that hard, so it's not an issue if you don't have it. And defenses are very cheap to roll. I suggest that you roll evasion literally in every point where you can. Okay, what else is there to cover? Yes, how you level up with this. If you find a legendary from here that you want to use, it doesn't matter what level it is, you can start using it. It will be useful for your endgame. I will show an example. Even if it's not at 100%, let's say that we have, I think, here's a boot that, let's say, I want to use. It's not at 100%, but you can increase it here with crafting, and this is quite cheap to do. So even if it's at level 10, this isn't a big investment to level it up to 100. As you can see, now it's 100 level. If you don't find your critical pieces and you want to start this build, these two, you can force them out. The way it works is if you have a legendary boot, then if you reroll the effect, it will only roll the legendary boot effects. There is about 20 of each on each and every slot, some more, some less, but if you have about 20, 24 of legendary Slorm, you can force them out, because if I roll, then it won't roll, for example, this type of legendary boots again until a full cycle is complete. So if I want to get the Sorrow Zeal pack, I can spend at first 24 of this legendary Slorm, and I will force out to have. On average, it will take about 15 to get both of these, and that will be the start of your build. As you can see, everything else has a level of top options that you can use while you are leveling, so you can just find the different versions for it. You don't need to hard roll for them. When you get your legendaries, I suggest that you start making them more useful. It's quite cheap to get magic stats on it, as you can see, and to get rare stats on it. But when you want to get epic stats on it, it will cost you a lot of money. So I suggest that you first get rare and magic stats everywhere when you want, and max out those that to be something that you actually want to use. And when you have the extra cash with farming about level 8 res, then you can go and get your epic stats with it. Before you do that, though, I suggest getting Mastery, Reaper, and Attribute stats. These are very cheap, as you can see. And especially the Mastery stat will give you about a 10% damage increase. So what you will do is simply craft these. And when you scroll down, you can see that this boot now has a Reaper stat that isn't our Reaper. So we will change it. And now it's our Reaper stat, and our Reaper is increased by this. Now we will roll for 5. And now this is a 5 Cori Iron Bender affinity, which is really good. You can do the same. As you can see, it already has arrow shot because I got lucky. But you can roll the Mastery, and you can roll for Savagery or other stats that you want to use. Arrow shot will give about a 10% damage increase. The attribute stat and the Reaper stats are less than 10%, but they are still very good compared to the price and how fast you can get them. And you can get them on literally every part of your gear. So this is a very cheap and fast way to get a lot of power on your build early. So I suggest doing so. The way you want to approach your build is to check every gear part that you have. For example, you will see your gloves to what are the magic and rare stats that you can use on it that is useful for you. As you can see, the best stats here that I want to use is the critical, not for the boots, sorry, but for the gloves. As you can see, the best stats that here I can use is the critical strike chance and ancestral strike chance. But if I want, I can use fork chance and pierce chance instead. So I decided that I want to roll for critical strike. You should always roll the rare stats first because that's a more expensive thing to get. So reforge your rare stat because now you have two things that you want to get, so it will cost half as much to get it. When you have that, then the magic stat is very cheap to roll. As you can see, fourth of the price, and you can roll your magic stat. You should always check your base stat first because these give a lot more than the magic or rare stats. So if you have anything like Ancestral Strike damage here, you should put it here because this will give you the most for your money. And these are very cheap to roll. So defense stat will always be evasion, so there isn't much to do there. But for this, you can see that you can use armor, critical damage, things like this. I will show you what rolling is. Let's say I want cooldown reduction instead for my quality of life. I wouldn't, but for example, let's say this is what we want. I will start reforging. I immediately got it. As you can see, now I can't roll Ancestral Strike anymore. It's orange. And cooldown reduction is now on. If I roll again, cooldown reduction is out, and until I complete an entire cycle, I won't get this anymore. You cannot get attack speed because if it's already on this gear, then you can get that stat again. So, for example, evasion is in my defensive stat. I cannot roll evasion here. You can use this to block out stats in your epic stat part to make that cheaper, but what I suggest is that you max out your magic and rare stat, and for your epic stat, you can go here and the first epic stat that you will get will be not as costly as you think because you will roll 3 stats all at once. So while there is a lot of options here, because you roll 3 times always, then in about 10 you will get the exact stat that you want. Then you will do and you lock that stat. For example, at elite damage reduction, we will lock it. And then, as I logged life leech here, and then you can roll 2 stats and it will take a lot longer. It will take about 20 to get the exact stat that you want. Then you lock it again and it will take about 30 to get the last stat that you want. This is what makes this very expensive. If you want the perfect stats for your epic stat, it takes a lot of money and time to do so. Okay, let's set back this to the thing that I want to actually use, which is Ancestral Strike damage. As you can see, because I rolled away from it, now the cycle is reset. I can get Ancestral Strike again because I did other things. So I'm starting the roll and I have it. And it's already max rank, so I don't need to reforge it to have it in a different place. This is how you roll all your gear, and this is what you do to get to this level. And when you are done with this, you will have a starting build that is capable of clearing the entire game. I hope you enjoyed this Go and have fun. Bye.